Supervisory Union Board of Directors meeting, Wednesday, January 27th at 4:40 approximately, Jim?
Yes, I have 4:39 exactly.
4:39.
Yep.
Begin by reading the agenda. And there is an addition to the agenda tonight. Item 1 is public comments. Item 2 is finance, the treasurer's report for November and December of 2020. The consent agenda, which includes minutes, absence, retirement, resignations, nominations, and 8 policies to be warned tonight. Superintendent's report is item 5. Chair's report is item 6. And for your information, the budget status report is included and the student enrollment data for December 2020 and January 2021.
What I would ask if you could, under the consent agenda, add a discussion about the middle school walk-in cooler. It's an SU item because it's part of the food service program and there is action requested.
Does that suit the pleasure of the board?
Yeah.
Okay.
No objection?
Yes. No objection.
Okay, then we will add that under item 3, the consent agenda. Any other changes?
No.
Okay, public comments, let's see. I should, before I get too far afield here, for Richard's sake, Bud Kelleher, we got Superintendent Culkeen, Dick France, Laura Boudreau, Assistant Superintendent, Ray Molyneux, Leon Johnson, Fran Kinney, Scott McEnany. Cat TV is here, and I'm not sure who that person is. Renee Gordon, Nick Galt, Kate Abbott, William Basic, Megan Mescat. I think others will be joining us shortly, but that's our crew right now. Are there any public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 2, finance. We have a treasurer's report from November 2020 and December 2020. And
I'll move them.
Look, there's
Second
a
it.
motion from Fran and a second from Leon.
Yep.
Is there any discussion regarding the treasurer's report? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Raising your hand.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? No. And in that case, the treasurer's report passes unanimously. The consent agenda includes.
That.
We have a motion from Fran. Do we have a
second
second? We have a second from Leon. Discussion. Could I, before we get into discussion on the
middle
added item?
Yeah, separate out the middle school cooler from the consent agenda part. So
Okay.
prove what's already there, but Renee's got a few words about what's going on there.
All right, then we'll consider minutes. I believe the minutes I saw produced for January 5th, December 14th, and there was an October 28th included. Just for reference, the January 5th we approved on the 19th of January. So those are already approved, but we have minutes for December 14th and October 28th. And warrants are included. What did I have a note here on? Many, I guess, of the nominations are way back from November. I guess we haven't really met to consider those kind of things until this point.
It's all budget.
Yeah. I'd also like to note that the equity professional, that there were some 55 applications considered. That's an amazing number. I just wanted to note that in case people missed that. Is there other discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I see no opposition. In that case, the motion is passed. And we move on to the discussion on the walk-in.
Good evening. So when we had presented this to the board a few months ago, prior to the installation, the cost estimate that we had did not include any of the required subcontracts. So this board had granted us authorization to use up to $15,000 out of the food service fund to pay for the Carpenter Group, who was the contractor at the time that we had a proposal from. Once we actually got into the project, we needed to have drawings prepared. There was steel that needed to happen, concrete, and then of course connecting the power and cooling. So we have about $10,000 worth of subcontracts that have come in addition to the price that we had from the Carpenter Group. So there is sufficient funds in the food service fund because we're operating under the summer food service program. We're actually able to get reimbursed at a higher rate. So we're actually making quite a bit of money in the food service program right now, and we actually need to be spending it down. So this is actually a good way for us to be able to do that. So I'm just asking if the board would authorize us to spend up to another $10,000 to cover the cost of the subcontracts. We have $2,500 as a not to exceed fee for Bennington Cooling and Heating. And then subcontracted through the Carpenter Group, we had $1,100 for professional engineering services for the drawings. Harrington Steel was $1,623. And then Tetro Concrete for removal of the existing sidewalk and then installation of the new concrete pad that the cooler now sits on was $4,760.
So you would like a motion
Stated by the number of meals being prepared from the middle school kitchen during the summer, right?
Yeah.
The cooler.
It's a critical need for them.
Yeah.
Right. And Maureen said that it is up and running now. Unfortunately, when the unit was delivered, it had a bad compressor. So they actually had to have a repair company come, which is covered under warranty. But she said now that it's up and running, because all the meals are being prepared out of the production kitchen there at the middle school. She said it's phenomenal. It has been a huge help, and she's very, very grateful.
All right. So this is a complete installation. We're just paying for the things that we didn't pay for before now.
Correct.
I'll move that.
Second.
So we have a motion from Ray and a second from Scott. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Is there any other discussion?
Just wanted to be clear, Leon, this is, I mean, when we had the bid for that, these items wasn't down there in terms of the cost for that, or just trying to make sure how we got to where we are.
At the time, we had a proposal from solely from the Carpenter Group just for their work with having, you know, to cut through the wall and prep all that. They're going to be painting the unit and doing some shielding on it so it kind of blends with the front of the building. So his cost was a not to exceed of $15,000, but we had all these other pieces that were required for the installation as well that I was not aware of at the time. I thought it was a complete install cost of the $15,000, but Tony clarified that that was not the case. So we did have these extra costs.
Okay.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed. And so the motion is passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4 is policies. We should take these one at a time. We have been working on these for some time, and Arlington has had some input on what we're doing, but some minor notes. Some of them simply provide better statements about what we're doing. Some are the result of changes in the law or state requirements that didn't exist before. Some of them have been added as security measures. And so as we review these policies, we're upgrading. Anything else you'd like to add on that, Leon?
Oh, that's good. You're doing good. You're going to list them. Go ahead.
We're looking for a motion to warn policy 1000. That's the policy on policies, or the policy drafting committee is its title.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Fran, and I didn't pick up who the second was. Is that right?
Well,
Right.
Leon and I tied, so okay. Leon's the chair, so let's put for that. So I'd put him in there.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No abstentions. Policy 1000 is warned. Policy 2400, access control.
I'll move it.
Motion by Fran.
I'll second it.
Second, Leon. Discussion.
Access control to what? Is that the title of it?
That is the title of it. It's a one-page policy, and essentially it dictates that we provide a safer environment, provide the premises with equipment for the safety and security, and addresses the design and management of those systems.
All right. Well, that's fine. I'll look at it more carefully now that once it's warned.
That's number 2400. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Seeing no abstentions. Policy 2400 is warned. 2450, security cameras. We're looking for a motion to warn, and we have a motion from Fran.
Second it.
Second from Leon. This is connected also, Ray, and it just addresses that cameras will be in place for security reasons in the buildings.
Yep.
Is there other discussion?
That's part of the access control, right? Right.
That's a separate point.
No. It's a separate policy.
Separate policy, but it dovetails with it or connects to it?
Yes.
Does it not?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of warning 2450 security cameras signify by saying aye.
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 I see no opposed or no abstentions. So 2450 is warned. 4327, Family Medical Leave Act.
I'll move it.
Motion by Fran.
Second it.
Second, Leon. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of warning 4327, Family Medical Leave, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And I see no abstentions. Family Medical Leave 4327 is warned. Policy 5009, Title I comparability.
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion by Fran, second by Leon. Would you like to explain a little more about this, Leon?
Let's see what I got. The company required by this accountability policy requested by with an administrative request. I don't have the actual copy in front of me.
Leon, do you need help with this one? Do you want me to explain this one?
Yeah.
I don't need the explanation. I'll read it and figure it out.
Okay. I didn't print all the copies again. Now.
Yeah, I would just, it's to support it's a requirement of our Title I grants.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was also, yes, it's a state requirement too.
Yeah.
Some of these policies
Of course.
come into effect because of that. Other discussion? If none, all those in favor, warning 5009, Title I comparability, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed or abstentions? Seeing none, 5009 is warned. 5010, compensatory education parent involvement.
So moved.
Second it.
Second.
Motion by Fran. I don't know if the second was Leon or Scott.
Scott.
But we have a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of compensatory education parent involvement, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None. There's Chayla.
Yeah.
And 5010 is passed and warned. 5156, student nutrition and wellness. Also a state required policy. Motion from Fran.
I'll move it. I'll second it. Excuse me.
And Ray second. Discussion. Boy. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And I saw no abstentions. 5156, student nutrition and wellness is warned. 5405, behavioral intervention.
So moved.
And we have a motion from Fran.
Second.
A second from Scott. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor of 5405, behavioral intervention warning, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? I see no abstentions either. And behavioral intervention is warned. At this point, we move on to the superintendent's report.
Good evening. The first part of my report, I'm going to turn this over to Nick Galt and Laura Boudreau. You'll see what's on the agenda. It is our evaluation for the evaluation, teacher supervision and evaluation system. It's been a year-long project to get it to this point, and they had quite a team put together to update the evaluation process. And when they're done, there is going to be required action by the board to accept the evaluation system. So Nick and Laura, I don't know who's going first here.
Laura's going to get started.
So thanks so much. So we are required to have a teacher evaluation system, and Nick will share a little bit about that in just a moment. But it was the whole entire document was in your packet. And just to give you a few little highlights, the goal of the teacher evaluation system is to promote continuous growth, and that leads to improved student learning. And the teacher evaluation system is just one tool in the system to help support this work. One of the highlights of this system, it's differentiated to support the individual faculty members that we have as part of our team, who all have different needs in terms of their professional growth and development. So over the course of the next few minutes, we hope to give you some highlights. Your turn.
My turn. So the contractual requirements. So I'm just going to read you Article 25.3 from the teacher contract, which states that the board may develop or revise the evaluation standards, procedures, and forms to be used in the evaluation of teachers. The SWVEA, that is the teacher collective bargaining unit, shall be invited to participate in the development or revision of standards, procedures, or forms. and SWVEA will be given an opportunity to comment prior to the board's adoption of an evaluation change. Those pieces, other than obviously the board adoption, have taken place. We formed a committee over the past 2 years, actually. So some of actually at least one person on the committee who has retired since this project started back in 2018. And what I'm going to do now is just list those members who were on this working group who put a tremendous amount of work in over the past 2 years. Christopher Barnes, the associate principal at the high school. Frank Barnes is the director of educational technology. Laura Boudreau, obviously. Melissa Cleary, counselor at the middle school. Andrea Ferrucci, who is an interventionist at Bennington Elementary. Sandy Foster, principal at Woodford. Mary Jo Kwiatek, who's a teacher at Mount Anthony Union High School. Megan Mezcat, our Associate Director of Early Education. Steve Nixon, principal from the high school. Tim Payne, our principal from the middle school. Katie Schoenbeck, who is a teacher and department chair at the high school. Katie Sullivan, a special education teacher at the middle school. And Bonnie Strange, a teacher at Pownell Elementary, who is now retired, who started the process in 2018. And we were tasked, the AOE actually required that we submit our plan, along with every school district in the state of Vermont, submit our plan for review. They then provide us with feedback, as well as exemplar plans from around the state. We made a decision, the committee made a decision to take the feedback from the AOE, use the exemplars, and use our existing plan as the foundation to sort of build on and create the new evaluation system. So we made updates to that existing plan rather than create a whole new system from scratch. And we use those exemplars as kind of models and tools as we went through the process.
So one of the decisions that the group made initially after reviewing the feedback from the state was to continue the model that we currently have in place is based on the work of Charlotte Danielson. And that's all around enhancing professional practice. It's a framework for teaching. And so it has 4 domains that we focus on in terms of supporting professional growth. The first is the learner and learning. And that's all about supporting what does it look like for an educator to build an environment that's conducive to learning. The second area or domain is content, and how do we support professional growth and monitor your area of expertise and what you're licensed to teach. The third domain is instruction, and that is all about monitoring evidence-based practices used to support instruction for students. And then the final domain is professional responsibility, and that's how do you take an active role in your educational environment? Are you participating in committees? Are you on a building level team? Are you on a district level team? What are those extra things that you're doing that are part of the culture of a community? So our whole evaluation system is built on those 4 domains. All right, next.
So with the one thing that our committee did, and we spent a lot of time, a lot of work in 2 different working groups. One that worked with me, and I say worked with me, they did most of the work, but my group and then Laura's group. So the group that I worked with focused on the rubrics that we use for our evaluation tool. Prior to this, or our current model has 1 rubric. And as you can imagine, when you factor in nurses and counselors and librarians who are all covered under the contract, 1 rubric with 1 set of standards really doesn't fit all of those positions. So using those exemplars and using some research, we crafted 3 new rubrics in addition to an updated rubric for our teachers. That is for library media specialists, school counselors, and school nurses. So they now have their own rubrics by which they will be evaluated. Which is a big improvement for our model.
So the responsibility of the group that I worked with was to go through the actual system itself and make updates. And so there are 3 main areas within the evaluation document. One focuses on the evaluation of faculty new to the district. And there are 4, that's a 2-year cycle. And the key components are there is a goal setting is part of the process. There mentoring is part of the process. Walkthroughs are part of the process, and then a formal administrative evaluation. And again, that's a 2-year a 2-year cycle. The second part of the evaluation tool is for veteran faculty. And again, that's a 5-year cycle. And year 1 to 4 have activities that need to be completed each year. You are setting goals every year. There are walkthroughs happening, which I'll get into in just a minute. And then there's a bank of professional learning strategies that teachers can choose from each year. Again, that's differentiated based on their area of expertise. And they craft a plan and work with their administrator to monitor that over the course of a year. And then in year 5, there's a formal administrative observation. The third big branch of the evaluation process is the focused plan of assistance. So this provides an opportunity and support for growth and improvement from an identified domain. So that process can start at any point during the year. An administrator can identify a potential area of need, and at any point during any year in the cycle, the administrator and the teacher can work together to craft a plan and identify evidence that they'll bring forward to show growth over time. So those are the big branches. I think if I'm gonna just highlight for you the 2 big updates or the big changes we've made to the system, the professional growth suggestions that we've provided for our faculty. They can choose to participate in curriculum work. Peer collaboration is a wonderful practice where 2 people with a similar area of interest can come together and take a deeper dive into a topic, and then visit each other's classrooms, try to get to the grain size of what's best practice in this area. Coursework, of course, which is something we offer. We've tried to offer things that we know are needed, linked to the goals of our district. You can participate in action research. I remember as a teacher, that was one of my favorite ones. There's a question in my head, it's linked to a goal in my building, and I take a deeper dive and I use my administrators and other peers to help move through that process. And then national board certification are in that bank. And then the other big change to this evaluation tool is, and again was a recommendation from the state and as a best practice, is the inclusion of walkthroughs. We know that our administrators are instructional leaders, and we also know that immediate feedback is the best thing to make change. So part of the change will be providing our system with professional learning and how to do walkthroughs and how to craft immediate feedback, again, to get after change. And so our definition of a walkthrough in our evaluation tool is it's a brief, structured observation that's followed by a dialogue between the observer and the faculty member about what was observed. And used well, the walkthrough can provide both the observer and the faculty member with valuable information about the status of the school's instructional program. And so finally, to wrap it up, we would ask you tonight to take action on this item. And then to let you know what the next step is once these updates are approved, we reconvene a group of administrators and teachers to come together, because we can't just implement this. We need to have professional learning. We need to share, really take a deeper dive now with our whole district about the updated tool and the different components. And that's it. Do you have any questions for us?
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Nick. And thank you to your committee that did an incredible amount of work to make this happen.
See, Ray got his hand.
Oh, Dick had his hand up.
Well, go ahead, Ray.
So the walkthrough, is that the only sort of observational component where there's work going on in front of with a class? Mm-hmm. Or am I missing something here?
There's also a formal evaluation as well at each level, Ray. So the goal is that there's multiple points of contact to learn more about what's happening with in a school setting. So walkthrough is one way, which is a quicker and shorter look, and then a formal observation is where you're in there for a whole instructional block to observe all the components of a lesson, which has a pre-meeting where you're meeting with the teacher to learn about all the components of that lesson. You observe the lesson, and then there's a follow-up as well. So they're both part of this menu.
Yeah, is there any interaction with the recipients of the lesson or lessons that are observed either through walkthrough or observation to determine the impact of those lessons on them?
Ray, do you mean that after a walkthrough or formal observation, are you talking about, is there an does the administrator and the teacher come back together to debrief and
no, I got that they do that. What I asked was, is there any direct feedback from students?
No. Oh, yeah. No, that's a great question. So in the official teacher evaluation system, in this particular one, that isn't a component of this particular system, but I would say that's a great suggestion for me to bring back to the team. One place though that you might see something like that is in the professional growth suggestions. So if you're in year 1 through 4 and you've worked with your administrator to develop a goal, if you're doing some kind of action research, or you're doing, action research would be a big one, any kind of peer-to-peer, often students are involved and engaged in that process. So there are entry points through the professional growth suggestions for that to happen. But I appreciate your question.
Yeah, it just seems to me that what you've outlined here is you've just filled in a little bit, but it still seems to me a little bit sterile and a little bit divorced from the patient, so to speak, which is the student.
Using students in the evaluation system would require...
Well, I don't think they would be part of the evaluation, but their feedback's important to the evaluation.
I think their feedback's important for the teacher to hear, but to use student feedback in the evaluation process would be something that would be subject to negotiations.
Okay, well,
I'm not saying that it's not a good model.
Yeah, it just seems to me that that's where that's important.
Yeah.
A lot of places have tried to introduce that by testing, but I don't think the testing's a good fit for that.
Ray, can I add one more piece? So
sure.
There's two kinds of assessment that you do on a regular basis. So one is formative assessment, and I think that kind of gets after a little bit of what you're looking at. So if I'm in, and this is a practice that we foster in this district and provide professional learning around, if I'm doing a lesson, on the moment that I give the lesson, when I'm done, there is some kind of quick something, an exit ticket or a conversation or a question that I should be doing with students to gauge how that went. And that's feedback from me as an instructor in that moment to readjust what I do next with those kids. So that's something that's embedded in that we constantly need to provide professional learning in, but that is a practice that we do foster where kids have voice.
So Ray asked a question that I had said, what I was going to ask along that line, because I definitely wanted to not say that we needed students to be a part of the formal evaluation system, but information needs to flow in some form to the group or whoever is doing that part to be able to hear and understand how the message is being passed along from the teachers to the students, because that's the real bottom of what we're trying to achieve out here, is to make sure that students are getting and understanding what they're supposed to be achieving in a classroom setting. And if they don't get some kind of provide something to somebody that's doing the evaluation process that part won't be improved out there for the person.
Yeah. Well, that Leon's reinforcing what I'm saying. And I'm reminded of, geez, this really dates me. Back when the Dufours came and gave their presentation. And I can see elements of that in this. I'm not entirely clear about how holistic it is, but I'll give you that there's been a lot of work, and it just seems to me that when professionals get together to talk about what they're doing, and if it involves other people, namely students, as the objects of what they're doing, that there's a tendency to ignore them. So I don't want to do that, because they are, after all, in fostering and encouraging interest, enthusiasm, and a sense of they can do this and they can do it in a rigorous fashion is important.
Now, I appreciate your feedback. And when we move on to this next level of the professional learning piece, I think, Ray and Leon, what I heard from you is the domain, the learner and learning, which has criteria linked to what you're talking about, should be a big piece of our professional learning. So I thank you for bringing that up, and I appreciate that. And that's something that, as we take a deeper dive and look, provide professional learning in that domain, we'll remember your comments. So thank you for that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for presenting.
We need some action. The board needs to approve the.
May I ask a couple of questions before we move to that?
Right.
I always am concerned.
You yielded to Ray.
You yielded to me and I took over, so whatever.
Well, I'm taking my minutes back.
Good.
I guess I have mechanical questions. So you've got collaborating professionals that are going to go in and be part of this observation. Do you have confidence that your staff is able to do that in a critical fashion, and not just Joe's my buddy, he's a teaching professional, we're both in the same unit?
Yes.
He's good.
Yes. So I want to, these are all the great conversations that came up. So remember, the goal is to have a multi-layered system where you have administrators doing the evaluation process, and professional learning and how to do that and how to monitor and know what you're looking at is one level. And then that same thing, when you think if you're going to do a peer-to-peer project in one of your 4 years, if it's your year where you can make that choice, the teachers on the committee, that was actually something they said, we need training in this. So there is a whole 6 months of professional learning that needs to be developed, very much linked to a lot of what you're saying, is that if you want this to have meaning, then we have to provide training. And we've actually listed in the document that you received in your packet, it lists some, and this was a year ago. So we were hoping to do this with you a year ago, and COVID-19 happened. So we will be now revisiting the resources that we had already picked. So Dick, yeah, the professional learning piece is incredibly important.
Well, I read the document. My gosh, it's pretty expansive. And thank you to Ray and Leon for asking my other questions. So we're on the same page. You need
one more.
You need one. You need to say something, Leon.
Yes, please. And this is the slide that, and I don't know how this fitting. The overall expectation at the end of the evaluation process of growth out there. I'm having some I mean, I'm just trying to deal with what are the expectations for those that say, okay, I've gotten through the process, and their relation with the district or the school system and so forth. What is their expectation for themselves of that need to be coming from the board? And it shouldn't be any, but I'm trying to make sure I understand. We got a bunch of individuals that get hired, go through the evaluation process, come out, work for a period of time to improve to a certain level. And I'm trying to make sure that there's not a misinterpretation of the expectation of what is owed to them once they completed all this.
Mm-hmm. So I think Nick has one piece to your question is what, so Leon, do you want to know, I think part of it, I think maybe that you're asking about is what is the administrator's role in completing this process, and what happens, what kind of maybe feedback do teachers get, or what happens to the document? Is that one part of the question?
Well, they finished the process. I mean, everybody it appeared that the goal is once I get through the evaluation, I'm working my way up through the steps in the school system to become the administrator or vice versa. And I'm saying, how is that handled in terms of the training process, in terms of the notification of what the expectations are, so that hopes won't be, unexpected hopes won't exist out there at the end of the process of the teacher's evaluation, and then going on to the next step and so forth along that line when it comes to replenishing the system in the school district. Is that a good way of put that? I guess
I wish we could encourage more people to go into administration, but if you've seen from the last openings we've had for, say, principals, vice principals, we don't get a lot of applicants. I think we shouldn't make the assumption that every teacher wants to be an administrator. In fact, how do we create a reward system to keep teachers engaged and happy? Some of our best teachers in teaching maybe shouldn't be administrators, not because they're not qualified, but because they're so valuable in the classroom. So how do we make that a reward system to entice good teachers to stay and maybe not move on to administration? But at the same time, that those who want to, how do we encourage them? A lot of it has to do with the professional learning that we pay for, and the coursework that is offered through Laura and Melissa Senecal for professional learning for staff members to, and do we encourage certain staff members to get certain type of training? Yes, we do. And they do have to get their courses approved for what they're going to take for their professional learning to continue their professional career. And what the coursework they want to take, we try to make sure that it aligns to what the goals are for the supervisory union too. So I don't know if that really answers it, but like I'm being somebody who was a teacher for a long time, became an administrator, it seemed like a natural thing for me. But I've talked to many teachers who have no desire at all. And part of it is leaving the protection of the Teachers Association too, which is difficult for some people to make that next step because it's. And the other is the structure of such too that and getting them principals to move on to the SU. The SU typically doesn't pay the salaries of what, particularly at our assistant director levels, to come work for the SU and leave the school district. It's a financial incentive to stay being a principal. So in the bigger picture of it all, we need to do a better job. And there's some other challenges. Secretary French recently used using the term increasing the pipeline of teachers to Vermont, because they're anticipating a severe teacher shortage in Vermont. And at the same time, the chatter that has exploded in the past week is when the state treasurer made recommendations of changes to the teachers' pension system.
Yes.
And as an administrator, I worry about that like I'm not happy with the number of applicants we're seeing for positions right now. How do we get more? We're challenged with New York and Massachusetts close to our borders, and if they're going to make changes to that pension system, it could be more difficult to recruit teachers to apply and keep them. We got way off on topic.
Yeah, well, I would agree with many teachers don't envision becoming administrators, and for not just reasons of safety and security, it's that their interests are in working with kids and seeing them grow and learn.
You don't want to be there.
Yep, they don't want to do the stuff that administrators have to do.
They don't want to go to board meetings, right?
What? Sorry.
You don't want to go to school meetings.
Right. So I offer this final little comment briefly. I would say that if this system is up and running and you don't see improvements in the kind of climate for students learning, then something's wrong with it.
Thank you, Ray, and we hope to make it a living and breathing system that will be updated.
Yeah, I got that, and I agree with that goal, and that is the goal by which you have to measure the whole system. I know there are lots of parts here, but ultimately there's a correspondence to a reality, and the reality has got to be improved outcomes and children enjoying learning, because they're going to have to do it all their lives. That's the new normal for all of us.
If we have worked over the discussion on this topic, is there a motion to approve this stage of the document?
Yes, Leon, move to accept.
I think I saw a motion from Leon and a second from Fran. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? I saw no abstentions, and the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to your committee.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks them all.
Yeah.
The chair's report doesn't need.
Superintendent, just add a few more things. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
You know, you're enough trouble in the short run. We should shut you off where we go ahead. Yeah.
I have just 3 words for you. COVID, COVID, COVID. You get my emails. The challenges are real to keep our schools open. We want our students in school. You know, this week alone, we met with the Vermont Board of Health 3 times. And I can't praise them enough, but particularly Kathleen O'Reilly from the Vermont Department of Health. But you should know, as I can't praise her enough, you should know the praise that she has for your employees and how we have responded, our COVID response team. She says it in every meeting we're in because people have done their homework and they're ready when we have a positive contact. But you know, I'm struggling. You know that we have 2 schools operating remotely this week because there were so many people required to quarantine because of a positive contact in the building. That it's a challenge. But I'll look at it this way, right? We have 6 schools that are open this week, right? So though we've had to do some selective closures at certain grade levels because a pod had a positive and someone needed, you know, we had too many people that had to quarantine, so that pod couldn't operate. So I talked about Kathleen O'Reilly. I want to talk to you, and I need to bring her to a meeting someday. Ashley Walker, our COVID-19 coordinator, and also our middle school nurse. It is so reassuring when I go into that meeting, what she has prepared, her fellow nurse, and all the school nurses have stepped up unbelievably. But you know, Ashley is with us on weekend meetings, late Sunday night meetings, because we get the call that there's been a contact, and our response team gets together by Zoom, like everything is happening, and we work out the details. And those meetings typically take at least an hour, and then we're done with the Board of Health, and then we do our meeting and work on, you know, the announcement that's going to go out with Katie West, who has been fantastic. Again, someone who I've been able to contact weekends, nights, and I need you to jump on a Zoom meeting, and she's responded. Once I start thanking people, I always get nervous about, you know, who I forget, and I have been compiling a list. And when we get through this, and I hope that we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel, there's so many people that the board should recognize for the outstanding work that that has been done. Some things that, and so let me start with like the person who I meet with every day, Laura Boudreau. The school system wouldn't have gotten through this without her, and I can't thank her enough. And that one thing that she and I talked about in our morning meeting today, and it came from also our COVID-19 coordinator. We need, and we've already started the process with our principals. I think COVID fatigue is hitting people. People are tired of following protocols that keep them safe. So we need to restate with our directors and principals what these protocols are, and make sure that, and what I'm talking about is like, you know, making sure that distances are followed in buildings. Make sure that because there's a positive contact, we can do the contact tracing. I mean, I was in a meeting with the high school and the Board of Health earlier this week, and there is the school nurse at the high school, and she's got the seating chart of where all the students were eating lunch. You don't know how helpful that is. And we ask that everybody does that. And I don't think it's being done with the consistency in every school that we need it to be done with, so that we can get through this pandemic and keep schools operating. But it is so impressive when I see something like that, and then people are eliminated, because we would be, if we didn't have that information, there'd be many more people who need to quarantine, and our schools would be impacted even more. So it's really impressive to see, and we're asking our information coordinator, Katie West, to do a feature story on how that process works, so that we can share that with everyone. And somebody else on this meeting I need to thank tonight, we're almost through budget season, and how Renee Gordon is still standing over there with all that she has to do in this. You know, budget season is stressful enough under normal conditions. Under this virtual environment, it is even more so. So, you know, congratulations to Renee, and you're almost there. You're almost to the finish line. Hopefully we're going to get everything warned. You saw I sent the MAU and the Union Elementary Board. We need to do a special meeting at 5 o'clock tomorrow. We're going to do it jointly. It should be quick. And Dina Atwood will be there. Make sure that we have these warnings exactly right, because the deadline is fastly approaching and we don't have time. But you know, outstanding work by Renee. I'm worried that she doesn't know how to stand down, but I'm going to have to order it. And the other person who's on this meeting, there's so many other people I need to thank, but I'll start with the ones who are here. Nick Galt is an outstanding director of human resources. And I think he's the reassuring contact in this to staff members who reach out to him who may not want to talk to the superintendent about, you know, everything from they need a leave of absence to they're struggling with something, or they just have a question. And in the middle of this, our insurance changed so Nick and his staff had to deal with all of that, and mostly in a remote environment. So, you know, don't just deal with the COVID crisis, deal with insurance change in the middle of this. Oh, and by the way, let's wrap up negotiations and start another. So, you know, can't thank him. And Kate Abbott and Megan Mescat, they're both. Kate stepped up and is doing, you know, a very difficult job. And she is doing the praise that Kate Abbott receives, whether she knows it or not, from our attorney. Every day I see him on the phone or in a Zoom meeting with Dina, and Kate, she can't speak highly enough for you and the professionalism that you have brought to student services. And so I can't see your face, but thank you. It is my honor to work with you. And Megan, who many of you probably didn't even know before this year, Kate's assistant, who is our interim, early childhood coordinator, and with the challenge of school care and trying to get school care to our essential workers in the community, with the challenge of maybe that we don't even have enough staff to staff it. So there's so many people that I've forgotten, but I do, there's Kate. I do want the boards to know that there are some, and Megan, there are some outstanding people that I get to work with every day, and that you have the honor of having them working for your school system. So thank you. We're not out of this yet. I hope it's getting close. I want our students back in school. I want our staff safe. I want our students safe. I want a return to normal so that we can continue the work of improving and making this a outstanding school system. So that concludes my report, but any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
No questions?
And I apologize to everybody I forgot tonight, but there's more. Trust me, there's more.
Yeah, that's always the problem with identifying people to thank. You always miss somebody.
I will. I'll thank all of it. I think you've been flexible and understanding, and yet we're all frustrated, I'm sure. And I should thank our teachers again, their flexibility, our principals who are operating under incredible stress, and to the parents and families for understanding. I'm sure they're frustrated. They want their child in school learning as they understand learning to take place. And we're trying, and we got to try harder. Yep. All right, I really am done now.
Okay. Well, Jim, you took, I think, all of my notes. However, yes, I was going to thank the crew at central office and those that work as an extension of that. One of the things that's worth noting is whether it's Jim's email, letters, statements to parents or staff groups, newspaper issues. There's a consistency there. It's a steady drumbeat. People need to hear that. I hear people talk about it. So what you're doing is consistent and supportive of the students, and people do talk about that even if they don't call you up and tell you that directly. So the consistency is a big deal. So thank you to all that staff. And Ray, I'd like to recognize Ray. He had some points he wanted to make.
Just one point. I brought an issue up to this board, and it hasn't been resolved, but I wanted to point out that I intend to wait until after the annual meeting and the reorganization of this board, and then I will bring it back to the board because I think it does need to be dealt with. And meanwhile, I will attempt to do a little more research and get Renee's help in bringing what I need for facts forward so I can at least analyze it and present that as part of my efforts.
So Ray, after we met today, I had a thought. I think the direction that the SU board should take when they reorganize in March, the committee, someone should make a motion to form an ad hoc committee for assessments, so it stays on the front burner, because it's going to impact Arlington and Sandgate coming in, and so that.
Yes.
I know that Renee would like to have at least a procedure or document. Whether it eventually becomes a policy, I don't know, but it should be outlined somewhere how the procedure is doing. So if we put an ad hoc committee that reviews how assessments are done, because it's going to impact everyone if anything shifts on how those assessments are done. So put a, whoever is the chair of the
well, I'm certainly a candidate for being on that committee because I've brought this up a number of times, and I do think that given the mashup that's occurring, that we definitely need to review this for everybody's information and see if there are appropriate changes to be made.
I think that's the solution, so that it doesn't get kicked down another year and then we're at budget season.
Yes, I totally agree. And that was why I wanted to make this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I have nothing further to add. Any other items to be brought before the board? Well included in your packet was the SVSU budget and the student enrollment. If there's nothing further, we would like a motion to adjourn.
I move that. Well, I'll second to Fran's movement.
Fran made a motion, Ray second, and adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And we are adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Good night, Ray. See you
Good
later.
night, everybody.